Blog Talk Radio.
Welcome to our program on Kardec Radio. And now, here's our host, Dr. Vanessa Anzalone.
Welcome, dear listener, to Kardec Radio. This show is most special because it talks about the cell of our society. Talks about family, talks about parents, children, and the importance of emotional and spiritual education for kids and youth. It's so important, this show, that we'd urge all of you who are listening to this to share the link. Share the link even if you're listening to it live or on demand at kardecradio.com. Go and share, because you're spreading good news. It's fascinating sometimes that when we invite people to do things that are not very healthy, we don't think twice, we don't hesitate. But why do we hesitate when we invite people to do good things? Good question. Maybe that's one of the questions that we're going to raise in the show, because it talks about the way we were raised. Should we be ashamed of doing good? Or on the contrary, we should do the opposite, as Allan Kardec said to all of us in his comment to question 685 of the Spirit's book, published in 1857, when he asked the good spirits about the law of work. His comments turned to a new and very revolutionary definition on education. The education that we're talking about in this show is the concept of the Spiritist education, in the sense of, as he said in his own words, it is the moral education. And moral, by the way, for those who are North Americans, don't worry, don't be scared by the word moral. It's not about that imposition of the church. It's about the invitation to the best side of us. It's about emotions. It's about spirituality. That's what Kardec meant at the time. And it means the art of forming character. More education that creates habits, because education is the sum of acquired habits. That's why we say that people are not well educated or they are well educated, because it's neutral. We acquire habits, and whether they are good or bad, it's another story. But we're talking about education here of our emotions. Where can we get coached about our emotions? There are no schools for emotions yet on earth. We have schools for intellectual education, not for emotions. And not even talking about spiritual education. Thank God we have places to work on our spiritual education, such as Spiritist centers. And in this show, we have very special guests. We have Len Michel from California. He's going to be here with us very soon to talk about the amazing materials that his company, onionhead.com, has put together to educate our emotions. Can you believe there is a dictionary of emotions? It's unbelievable. If you count emotions in your hands, can you count more than 10, 20, 30? Well, there's a dictionary they put together defining and identifying 150 emotions. Mind-blowing. Yes, it is. Not only that, but they created games, card decks on emotions to teach children, youth, and adults to identify their emotions, to deal with their emotions, and figure out that, as Dr. Antonio Damasio from the University of San Diego, he said, we are emotional beings. Emotions are integral part of our reasoning. This story of old times in which, like, I don't feel anything, emotions are nothing, they don't take me over, etc., it's long gone, because our brains are wired to process emotions. We are emotional beings. But what do we do with them? So Len Michel is going to tell us a lot about it. Good collaborator now of the Spiritist Society of Baltimore, the Spiritist Society of Virginia, and Kardec Radio. And then in the second part of the show, we have our dear friends, Naur Fonseca and Gabi Ferreira. This very special couple who just arrived from Boston. They are actually here at Kardec Radio Studios. Yes, did you know Kardec Radio is actually a radio and has its own studios with all the microphones and the whole 9 yards of a radio, and they are here. They have very extensive experience in Spiritist education for children and youth. Naor himself has been leading these efforts at the Allan Kardec Spiritist Society of Massachusetts, the center in Somerville, and he also joined forces with Eduardo Guimarães in New York when, years ago, they put together the Family Spiritist Retreat in Connecticut, in which hundreds of people gathered together, families, to spend the day not only talking but experiencing activities about spirituality and life in general. Quite interesting, not to say vital and very important. And Gabi Ferreira, she has also, professionally speaking, a master's degree in education, and she professionally serves the public in the Boston area regarding the difficulties of children until 3 years of age, and she's going to tell us more about these experiences. Most important, they're going to share how Spiritism can help us give a new boost to the spiritual intelligence of our children and youth. And to talk about it, let us now think about these gospel passage, the gospel according to Spiritism. When we talk about children, parents, and education, we need to quote one of the leading authorities in Spiritism, St. Augustine, who in chapter 14, especially item 9, he says to all of us, "O Spiritists, you must understand humankind's grand role. You must understand that when you produce a body, the soul who incarnates in it has come from the spirit world in order to progress. Know your duties and put all your love in leading that soul to God. This is the mission that has been entrusted to you, and for which you will receive reward if you faithfully fulfill it. The care and education you give it will help in its self-improvement and future well-being." What wise words we're listening. This is true wisdom. Why do we become parents? As we said in the previous show with Dr. Vinton, we said that basically our parenthood is not a certificate of maturity. We don't have children so they take care of us in the elderly years. We cannot use our children to hold a husband or a wife near us either. So we shall plan it, and not only plan but prepare ourselves and know the deep meaning of parenthood. It's a mission. But what do? Where do we get help to actually raise our children wisely, emotionally, spiritually? Because intellectually, schools are out there. But what about the rest of us, which is the essential part of us? So to give a big boost on the main mission of parents, which is sowing good seeds in the hearts of our children, we give you this beautiful message that came through the medium Chico Xavier and is published in the book and CD entitled Enlightening Messages, published by the Spiritist Society of Baltimore, and you can access it at our bookstore, www.ssbaltimore.org/bookstore, and you have the CD and the book with messages such as the one that you're going to listen now, because sowing is the main task of parents and educators. Let us listen to it now.
Sow. Each heart is like a parcel of spiritual land. Many will be buried by the stones of prejudice at the side of others who got entangled by the thorns of illusion, needing enormous time to break free. However, think about the good land not in use. This is where elements that generate inertia are found. Abandoned lands, orphaned lands, creatures who are anxious for the fertilizer of faith, souls who beg for a modest garden of hope and comfort. These troubled, forgotten lands will often look for you. Your vision will open up through the fatigue of the parents where pain manifests, tortures, and consumes, through the disillusionment of your sad fellows who carry in their hearts the ashes of their own dreams, through the problems of the child who is consumed by revolt, through the trials of your brothers and sisters who cry smiling so that you may not see the debris of their resentment. If you can already hear the sublime sower proclaiming, "Sow, sow," you know that charity is the sun that sweeps the shadows. You bring within you the gift to sprinkle comfort. You can pronounce the blessed word. You can pour what is left from the purse, transforming the coin in a prayer of joy. You have the strong arm which lifts up the fallen. Your fingers are capable of mending the strings broken by suffering in others' hearts, attuning them to the sound of the fraternal music. You have the privilege of sharing clothes you no longer need with those less fortunate. Nothing hinders you from helping the sick. Nobody prevents you from building in the road the good for those who are here and for those who are to come. Do not deter yourself in the emptiness of the shadows. Plant truth and light, joy and goodness. If you perceive the voice of the sublime sower, you will hear him at each step of the way, confidently saying closer to your ears, "Work while you can, and sow, sow."
We will return to our program after these messages.
Kardec Radio, live every Saturday at 11 a.m.
Nourish your soul with Kardec Radio.
The newest edition of the Medium's book by Allan Kardec is now available. Purchase your copy online or via your ebook reader. Simply go to www.ediciofamerica.com today.
Nourish your soul with Kardec Radio.
Join us every Thursday live. Evolution in Two Worlds, a journey of the soul through the teachings of the Spirit Doctor, Andrea Luiz. Connect at www.tvcei.com, Channel 2.
Nourish your soul with Kardec Radio.
Enrich your spiritual senses and deepen your foundations of Spiritism with the book, What is Spiritism? By Allan Kardec. Buy your copy online or via your ebook reader. Go to www.ediciofamerica.com today.
And now we return to our program.
Dear listener, it's about emotional and spiritual education for kids and youth. We know that in the world today, it can be quite challenging and overwhelming to raise kids because the demands are so many. Both parents need to work, they need to be accomplished, and it's so hard. We barely know when to start giving these instructions to our children. Should we allow them to actually grow up and define the ways of living by themselves? Or can we actually coach them, not to say of a better word, but train them, coach them into specific, healthy, emotional patterns as well as spiritual concepts and way of living? Here we have with us in the first part of the show one of the pioneering, let's say, authorities in the field of giving to humanity, instruments for education. It's beyond the science. It's already the application of science. People talk about emotional education. Len Michel at Onion Head Company has brought with his team great materials. Onion Head has a pioneering program in emotional development for children and adults. Their motto is Feel the Feelings. That's why the main character is an onion. And Len Michel is here with us. He's going to tell us more about it. He's going to tell us about our emotions. Is it possible to change our pattern? What if you have an angry child or a sad child? Is it possible to help them, empower them, emotionally speaking? Hi, Len. Welcome to Kardec Radio. Thank you for joining us this morning.
Vanessa, thank you, and I'm so happy to be with all your listeners today and share this very, very important topic for our children.
Thank you so much for being with us. How is California right now?
Oh, my gosh, we have beautiful, beautiful sun rising and gorgeous weather, and we'll share with you if you need. How's the weather on the East Coast?
It's it's getting to the change of the leaves, so we're still enjoying. It's not cold yet, and it's mild, and the leaves are changing colors, so it's quite pretty as well. Good. Here. So, Len, we've just talked to our listeners that there is an actual dictionary of emotions. How did Onion Head, if you don't mind us asking, like a little bit of the behind the scenes of the making of these wonderful resources for emotional education, how did you begin this leading force in that field?
Yeah, well, the roots of Onion Head, if I could go for so far as keep that analogy of the onion going, really began in the mid-'90s. Two of our founders, a spiritual counselor and her daughter, an illustrator cartoonist, were using emotional opposites. And the character of Onion Head emerged through the practice, as you said, taking science, taking spiritual practices, spiritual methods, and bringing them to bear on this very, very important topic of emotions. There is no emotional manual or no manual to handle the emotions for humans. And getting out of theory into practice, the character of Onion Head emerged and began being used to teach children of all ages how to appropriately manage their emotions, but do that in a heartfelt and a truthful way. And so it has grown. Onion Head has grown since the mid-1990s, has been used in therapy and been used to touch not just children, but we say children of all ages because, as you're pointing out at the start of the show, we as parents haven't had the manual ourselves. And when we have children, we're ill-equipped to be able to teach them how to deal with emotions when, in fact, we ourselves are trying to figure out how to work with emotions. So the character began to blossom, and the idea of an onion peeling the layers. There's so many layers of feelings that generate our emotions, and there's been no language up until now, been no good, consistent language for the spectrum of emotions that we experience. And so in the early creation and the continual blossoming of Onion Head to what it is today, to have the emotions dictionaries for children, an emotion dictionary for teens and adults, the decks of cards that are tools to work with that, our newest chapter book, The Adventures of Onion Head in Space, which is going to have videos coming with it. There's a whole range of tools, and there are programs and workshops that have emerged all out of pragmatic steps to deal with what became very apparent is a state of emotional emergency that we have in the Western world, certainly today.
Yeah, and when we talk about emotions, Len, as a neuroscientist myself, we can recognize that neuroscience very recently. It's not more than actually, 2 decades that neuroscience was able to put together a body of knowledge and evidence to tell us that the brain naturally processes emotions. So emotions are part of our lives. We cannot deny it anymore. But we don't have schools of emotions, as you're talking about. And adults or children, how can we teach something we don't know? So the main question now is it possible to have a certain emotion and change it?
Yeah, and that is the heart of the matter, because as the little vignette that we had just before starting, sowing good seeds in the hearts of our children, it's all about a choice, because we say that choice, not chance, determines our destiny. And we really do have choice when we experience any feeling, when we experience the feeling into an emotion. When emotions come, often they're heavy. Now, we say heavy and light emotions. We don't say negative and positive, because we are human. Our children are going to experience heavy emotions. That is a part of our human experience. But to deny a heavy emotion, call it negative, pushes it away, and we don't deal with it then. And we, therefore, are too far away from our choice to be able to move or transform to a lighter emotion. So at the core of the teaching, the learning around Onion Head, is emotional opposites. This idea that if we can truly begin to name our emotions, our feelings that we have, claim them as our own, now we have choice.
So the beginning is to learn how to identify them, because often parents, for example, ask their children, "What are you feeling?" And they turn like very puzzled. They can barely name it. And even adults, how often they're feeling distressed. As a psychologist, we turn to patients, for example, and ask, "How are you feeling?" And they're like, "I cannot even name what I'm feeling. It's so overwhelming."
Right. There's no language that's there. And so, what we did for children, to that point, to be able to identify and create a language, we took the 26 most common daily heavy emotions that our children experience today and matched them up with the 26 opposite lighter emotions. And Onion Head teaches the language of these 26 most common emotions with their 26 pairs. So 52 emotions that are named and a language developed. And Onion Head teaches it through his own experience of experiencing a heavy emotion and how he chooses to move to a lighter emotion. And that's the children's dictionary. We call it the A to Z dictionary, 52 emotions, because we also make it fun for kids to learn the language of emotions. And by the way, as parents begin to work with their kids, parents are learning that language. And you did mention at the start, too, when we get to teenage years, well, we all know our teens are experiencing a lot more than just 52 emotions. So we took the spectrum up to the 150 emotions that are in the teen and adult dictionary of emotions, because that's a greater range that we experience as we grow older and older.
So just to go back a little bit more on why, so people understand it clearly, why is it so hard for us to deal with emotions? Why?
The first reason is, as we said, there's no language. We don't have the words to express. But the second is that we have become so desensitized, so out of our heart, and so far away from our spirit in our world today, that our heart is the first step for being able to recognize emotions. In fact, the science that we're talking about, the neuroscience, our hearts have neurons, up to 40,000 neurons in our heart, the same stuff that is the intelligence in our head. So what we're not accessing is our heart intelligence, the idea that our hearts know what we're feeling. Our hearts inform our emotion. But today we're too desensitized. There's too many, whether it's the video games with the shooting everybody up, or it is a barrage of the negative messages in the media. It is parents or mentors and teachers that are themselves desensitized, too overwhelmed and not knowing what to do with emotions. And our children are left then on an island of themselves, disconnected from their heart, not connected from their spirit perhaps. And so without the language and without the connection to the heart and the spirit, how can we be in our truth? How can we name and claim our feelings? We cannot. So the language, the connecting back with our heart and our spirit, gives us the ability to be in our truth. And then the third step takes courage to be able to speak what we're feeling and emotions that we're having, and do that in a way that that others' reactions, others' emotions around what we're speaking don't come back and continue to create a negative cycle. This is the challenge. It's a significant challenge for parents or teachers, even counselors who work with us all the time. But the biggest challenge is for our children.
Yes, for sure. So how and why does Onion Head work in that regard to empower emotional education?
The biggest thing is that it teaches us to live through our heart and our soul. It does that in a simple way. We actually say it's just so simple to deal with emotions. It's a 4-step process. The first step is naming our feelings. We say name it. That is being able to have the language of emotions. The second step is then claim it, claiming our emotions, where we can truly recognize, become aware of what we're feeling, and then have the language to be able to express it. The third step is tame it. And this is an important step because it involves knowing the opposites, the heavy and the light emotions. And I'll talk a little bit more about emotional opposites a little bit later, but for right now, the tame it part is just if we know what the lighter emotion is, that is the opposite of a heavy emotion we're experiencing, we already have the tools to tame it. And then the fourth step is to aim it, and that is that we choose to move to the lighter emotion. We can actually shift in an instant how we're feeling, how we're reacting, how we're speaking, and how we can help others when we make the choice to be on the lighter side. And how that plays out, let me give you an example. And this is a 13-year-old girl being disconnected from her parents, drawing within, the parents becoming very concerned about this girl, Amanda, and she is basically shut down. And the parents know something is very wrong, but there's no language, no way of connecting with Amanda to get her to share what's going on. And so the Onion Head came into their home, and Amanda began then understanding her emotions, feeling all the heavy emotions, never having the concept before Onion Head arrived that there's a lighter side, there's an opposite to heavy emotions. So her situation at 13 was she had no hope to get out of the heavy emotions before that time. And in reality, what their parents did not know at that time is she became suicidal. She was distraught. But the idea that the lighter emotions were there gave her hope and gave her an empowerment that is the aim it stage. And she, the next morning, can you imagine your 13-year-old daughter walking into your room and handing you the suicide note she had written the day before and expressing the choice that she wasn't going to commit suicide now?
Wow.
This 4-step process works. Name it, claim it, tame it, and then aim it. And it's all about that choice.
But, Lane, when we talk about these processes, the steps that you just mentioned. I am very happy to see that Onion Head has materials also to coach emotions at adult level, because what I often see is that parents want their children to be well behaved. They want to be quiet. They don't want them to come and speak all that much. But parents don't. They're not like that either.
Right. Right.
So is that also one of the reasons why Onion Head is also offering materials for adults?
It is one of the key reasons, because we as adults have not had this training ourselves. There's been no manual. And so what happens is we're not conscious as adults of how we interact with our children, even what we expect of them. Then through our role modeling, through our own behavior, we are desensitized and disabling. We're not empowering our children. And the greatest impact of the adults being able to use the Onion Head materials is to step into their own happiness. And we say happiness springs from the good use of our power and potential. But that power and potential is blocked if we're not in our heart and not in our soul. And so the key driver with the materials that are for the adults is to also be able to be in our heart and in a truthful way express emotions, but be able to find our voice and our happiness and our choice in an adult appropriate manner.
Very interesting. So now, just to illustrate a little bit about the need of joining forces with our children to educate ourselves better, we have here a beautiful 1.5 minute audio file recorded from the Spiritist Society of Baltimore. Let's listen to it, Lane, and then we'll come back to you to talk more about this. It's about the 10 Commandments.
Hello, my name is Sarah, and I am 9 years old, and I belong to the Spiritist Society of Baltimore. Today, I want to share with you the 10 Commandments by Josetta Korngold. Number 1. If you take something from a place, when you're done, return it to the empty space. Number 2. Clothes are not meant to be on the floor. Put them away on the hanger behind the door. Number 3. There is a garbage bin in your room for you to use. Don't be shy and put it to a good use. Number 4. Do your chores around the house for a couple of hours, forget the computer, and rest the mouse. Number 5. It is nice to have friends for a sleepover, but when they leave, make sure the room doesn't need extreme makeover. Number 6. If you have homework to do, go for it without further ado. Number 7. iPod, and TV are fun, but not as much as playing with someone. Number 8. Drugs and troubles are everywhere. Be watchful and take care. Number 9. Relationships can be complicated. Don't be in a hurry to find the right mate. Number 10. Life is full of surprise. Do not worry too much. You will survive. Bye-bye.
Isn't that interesting, Lane?
Oh, that is so beautiful. I want her for one of Onion Head's friends.
For sure. Sarah is the daughter of Kirsten DeMello, and they are at the Spiritist Society of Baltimore, and they kindly recorded it for us to play in this program as an example of how much we needed to bring our children also to these experiences. It's a way to help in terms of emotional education. So when we talk about emotions, Lane, you were talking about heavy emotions, light emotions, emotional opposites, right?
Yeah.
So can you tell us more about emotional opposites and how they are key to living truthfully?
Yeah, it's really, really important, and it was illustrated so well in that vignette too. The idea that we are all going to have emotions that rise every day. And we're going to experience heavy emotions. We're going to hear things we don't like to hear. We're going to our children are going to be on the schoolyard and be scared. They're going to experience someone who's nasty or somebody who's just nervous and doesn't feel safe. And these experiences that then generate the feelings within us have to have a place to go. We have to be able to work with those emotions. And so the emotional opposites as a study or science or theory have been around for quite a while. And the spiritual counselor, who's the founder of the concept with her daughter that I mentioned at the start of the show, found that the most pragmatic tool was to be able to use these opposites in a way that for children it was play. For instance, in the deck of cards that go with the emotions dictionary, there are 5 games in there. And the games allow the children to just start understanding the words of these emotional opposites, of the 52 emotions in that spectrum. But they play with it. It's easy. It's fun. For instance, one of the games that they play is we call it Grow a Story, where children can be in a group in a circle, and they will randomly pull out one of the 52 cards and start telling the story, and the next child draws another card and has to continue the story using the emotion they drew, and so on and so on. You get the most amazing stories that develop out of there, but what's more amazing is that it becomes fun to be able to work with emotions. And the opposites allow us this ability to recognize and begin to have understanding as a child, as a teen, as an adult of what I am experiencing every day. And I'll share with you, I've now been a part of Onion Head for about 3.5 years, and every day I use my Onion Head cards. And I begin my day drawing one card with my left hand, one card with my right hand, and my left hand is more my unconscious side, my right side more conscious side, and it's given me every day a clue and understanding and bringing into my consciousness maybe the feelings and emotions that I haven't dealt with the day before. Or maybe something I might be, how spirit is. We get help every day. And that ability to recognize the idea that a lighter emotion can always be chosen is the power and the empowerment behind emotional opposites. So for us, what we see as children use this, as adults use this, as counselors use it, the opposites create empowerment. They're great tools for problem solving and conflict resolution, certainly, and those are part of the use of the opposites. If we're in conflict, there are heavy emotions not being dealt with, and we can move and draw lighter emotions, and they become a solution to move forward. This is the tool of emotional opposites that is in all of the Onion Head materials.
So when we talk about materials, when we go to the website, onionhead.com, we now realize there are new tools available. They're very dynamic also for all of us if we want to go there and get a card for the day, like an affirmation, right?
Yes, absolutely. There are 2 tools that are online there. One is the Dictionary of Emotions, 150 emotions. You can every day go to our website, onionhead.com, and you will see on the main screen or under the Free Teachings tab the Transforming Emotions cards. And when you bring up that application, you have the ability to randomly pull out an emotion for the day. And when you pick your card, the thing that arrives is the heavy and light emotion paired together. It's a teaching, because the other aspect here that you're bringing up is that everything we're trying to do is help educate on emotions. So when you draw your card randomly, you get both the paired emotional opposites. Like today, for instance, I got asleep and awakened. And that was good because, our early call today, I had to be awakened for being on the call. But awakened is feeling awakened. It's an opening for wondrous things happening beyond our wildest imagination. And that kind of message for the day lifts me. It takes me right through the day, and this can be for you too. So onionhead.com is the Transform Emotions application there.
And that's what we're doing right now, Lane. We are here. Yes, we are at the website, and we're just picked the one card for him.
Okay.
It's quite interesting. We are enjoying the website as we speak.
And what did Nara get? Can you share?
It talks about violent and peaceful, which is quite interesting because earlier today, when they arrived from Boston, they arrived here quite early. You can imagine. They arrived here at 7:30. So we were talking about how hard it is today for parents because, children are often being pushed to these violent behaviors, to this rebelliousness in the media and everywhere that, what do we do? So it matches so much our conversation, the need to transform it to a more peaceful, generation.
Mm-hmm.
Right?
Yeah, yes. And, and the thing is that as we use these tools, if your listeners committed to go to the website, use this free tool every day, it would transform their lives because the teachings in there really call to our spirit, our soul, and to our heart. And remember, what I really want to impart is we've got to be heartfelt and truthful. And that takes our heart and soul, our spirit, being involved in our emotions. And so it gives us teaching. And the other thing, one thing I hear constantly from people, they're really surprised when they read the definition of a heavy emotion. Children, a lot of times, aren't surprised. They recognize in the children's version what those heavy emotions are. But adults, we all have trouble. We want to avoid the heavy emotions. But the people tell me they're surprised when they read it, and they don't feel bad. And there's an important teaching in here. You should not feel bad at understanding a heavy emotion that you have. You should become awakened. You should become aware. And then empower yourself. You're empowered. You have the power within you. We're given that power and to make a choice to move to the lighter. So as you read the violent definition, you could think, wow, this is not going to feel good reading this definition. And yet, when you read the definition, people don't feel bad. They feel that often more informed and more empowered, that more understanding of what that heavy emotion is. And this is the key to emotional opposites. If we believe heavy emotions are bad, then we won't get to the good. I don't believe, and I don't see people get to the good. Heavy emotions are not bad. We are human. If we stay in the heavy emotion, well, then we're not doing our job of being in our heart and our spirit, and we're not then spreading good seeds.
It's very interesting. And Lane, we are just here also enjoying another part of Onion Head website that talks about universal truths. And it's so beautiful because you also can pick a card from the Universal Truth deck of cards. And I was thinking right now, in psychology, we talk about the importance of speaking what we're feeling so we can elaborate. And, it's a part of this inner, not control in the bad sense of the word, but as you say, there is a level of transformation that requires taming of emotions. So in that regard, we need to elaborate and to speak and to, as you're saying, not be afraid of talking about the heavy emotions, because in talking about them, we're working on them instead of repressing, because we are probably, if not our generation, the previous generations, or including our generation as well, in this repression, liberation of emotions. It's either one of the extremes, but no actual transformative process of emotions, right?
Yes, very, very well said. We are experiencing the extremes. I think this is a powerful time for us as a society, us as a world, to recognize that we have the ability to change in an instant. And it's interesting. The universal truths that you're mentioning, they're often used, and they're frankly one of our better tools, better selling tools that people use as an affirmation, an inspirational card for the day. That's one of the reasons why we put it up. Again, people can go and look at it. But what happens is it makes it a little bit easier to continue the conversation. It gives another insight. And the messages in these cards, there's 72 different cards, there's 72 different messages. They really are universal truths. They're independent of any particular belief system. They're a tool to continue a conversation, a tool to get a little more insight into our emotions and to share. Oftentimes groups will get together and they'll randomly draw cards from this universal truth deck of cards, and it'll be the message that unlocks what somebody was stuck in being able to get through in an emotion, in a problem, some conflict that they're having. So it's a wonderful tool to continue the conversation.
Yeah, it's very interesting because when we talk about emotional intelligence, or as you say, heart intelligence, it reminds me of a passage in the Gospel According to Spiritism in which one of the spirit teachings that were brought in 1862 in Paris by the spirit Lazare, he says that emotions are instincts that were raised to the height of the degree of progress accomplished. So really, back then, they suggest to us that emotions are things that are in need of transformation, of a process. It's a process. It requires work to go from instinct to, let's say, we brought in here, violent to peaceful. How do you go from violent to being peaceful? We need to work on it. It doesn't happen overnight. And we're not stuck in our genes either, right? Lane, when you talk about a heart intelligence, you're talking about something that is possible to be educated. Are we right?
Absolutely the case. And it ties so well in with the passage you just read or the information you read, because our soul, I believe, our soul serves up to us in every moment just what we need for teaching, for becoming aware, for what we need to do to move another step forward. And this heart intelligence is a part of that process. Our spirit collaborates with our heart to bring to us those things that will teach. And we always have a choice whether we embrace them or we push them away. But we push them away at our own peril. And we push them away, and just know that whatever we push away will continue to come back until we learn these lessons. So the heart intelligence, when we talk about the neurons that are in our heart, that's the scientific side, or even scientific studies. You had Dr. Vietin from Institute of Noetic Sciences. They, with HeartMath, have done studies on heart intelligence and the heart and mind and body connections, and find that the heart actually is our best tool for being able to sense and recognize the things we have to pay attention to in our own immediate environment. And it's not just spatial environment, but in all of our interactions and connections. Heart intelligence involves, first, we find listening. Do we really feel in our heart what's happening in any moment? Do we connect with that? If we go back to feelings for a second, the root that generates the emotions and so on, we can even ask the question, where in our body do we feel? Now, we have many words connected with the heart that, just start with heartfelt, heartache, on and on. The heart becomes a central part of the intelligence that we innately have as human beings to be able to recognize where we're to learn. And so what in Onion Head we're trying to do is to reconnect ourselves with that innate wisdom of our heart and our soul. And that is in truly being reconnected with the intelligence, the messages that come from our heart, that go from our heart to our brain. And we have a little challenge, especially as we watch children develop and as adults, our ego steps in the way.
Mm-hmm.
We don't want to be seen as bad, or we don't want to show an emotion because someone may judge it in a way that would make us feel bad. We're not using our heart intelligence at that time. Our ego has stepped in the way, and our ability to access this intelligence is blocked. And yet, the truth is, we're all human, and every one of us is experiencing these feelings and these emotions. It's when we talk about them and we're able to share them that everything changes.
It's very interesting, very important too. Lane, we are going to give a 2-minute break, and we'll be back because we have a few callers that are here waiting to ask you questions.
Very good.
We will return to our program after these messages.
Spiritist Network, your gateway to on-demand Spiritist videos. www.spiritistnetwork.com.
Spread the word. Kardec Radio, to learn more about Spiritism.
Kardec Radio, live every Saturday at 11 a.m.
Nourish your soul with Kardec Radio.
Now in English, the book And Life Goes On by the Spirit André Luiz, psychographed by Chico Xavier. Buy your copy online or via your ebook reader. Go to www.ediceiofamerica.com today.
Spread the word. Kardec Radio, to learn more about Spiritism.
The Spiritist Magazine is a trimestral digital periodical that publishes the latest news on the Spiritist thought and the movement in the USA and worldwide. Subscribe now at www.spiritistmagazine.com. Known as one of the most scientific books by Allan Kardec, The Genesis dives deeper into the origins of our planet to the advent of the new generations to come. Purchase your copy today, online or via your ebook reader. Go to www.ediceiofamerica.com today.
And now we return to our program.
So, dear listener, we are here talking about emotional education for kids with Lynn Michelle from the Onion Head Company, learning a whole lot about the need to identify our emotions so we can name it, claim it, and tame it, as he says. It's very important. Based on scientific findings, Onion Head pioneered in the creation of phenomenal materials that can help us become better parents, better educators, also to learn about emotions in ourselves, because we cannot stick to these repression liberation modes. So Lane Michelle is here with us, and we have Jay from Alberta, Canada, here with us, who will ask a question to Lane. Hi, Jay. Thank you so much for joining Kardec Radio. How are you?
Hey, pretty good. How about yourself?
Thank you. So here we are. What's your question to Lane, please?
Hey, Lane, and actually, it's a great topic for the show. Thanks so much for letting me ask you these questions. My question, Lane, is that I'm planning on actually teaching some kids actually between about 10 and 17 some drumming stuff, and I'm curious how to go about this because I'm really planning in the planning stages of doing this like workshop for kids for drumming. But one of my questions is that how do you teach them spiritual values without impeding on what the parents are teaching them as spiritual too, or not teaching as them, that might conflict their religious beliefs or spiritual beliefs.
Right. Well, this is, one of the challenges in our time, in our world today, is the conflict that can quickly arise when somebody feels that their religious belief or their whole belief system is impinged on. One of the things that we've done, I want to share with you, Jay, what we've done, because we are not any one faith or one belief system. We really work on the universal connection, the common things that we just all share as human beings. And the start of that is the heart. We all have hearts. And then the language that we've used in the materials is it's definitely not generic. We don't avoid the spirit. And at times people will come forward and say, are you, Kabbalah, or are you Christian, or are you, and it's no, we aren't, but we don't deny the spirit as well. So in this language that has been created, we allow people to express themselves. We don't try to put all the words on them. We don't try to tell them how to think. We try to connect them. We try to create a connection between their own heart and their soul and the words and the upbringing that they have had. So there's an embracing and a welcoming of all of the views that can be there. And yet one of the things, just for me personally, is that there are challenges when somebody wants to thrust their views on another. So you could have a group or a parent enter the situation. And in that case, it's about you having ability in this children's drumming circle that you're creating to set the environment and the rules for how the conversations can unfold, what tools you can use. Actually, one of the things, Onion Head is a great tool for that kind of situation. Of course, Jay, I could fit Onion Head anywhere, right? but it's a tool to set an environment that is open. It's welcoming of all the views. And it's usually when people close down, the ego or a very closed system of beliefs has entered the picture, but they're also disconnected from their heart. And if we keep people in their heart, we find they're more open and more willing to hear other views. And this age group, 10 to 17, what a fantastic age to do the work you're doing, because they have so much to say and very little places do it, and their heart connected through music is wonderful. So that's what I would.
Yeah. I was actually going to say that they connected to the heart. Actually, I have a song that I repeat teaching. It's actually it's a woodpecker song, and this woodpecker gets on kids or children's heads that are too big, and actually pecks away at the head and goes back into the heart again.
I would love if you could share that song with me. I'd love that.
Yeah, I think I actually get it from a person who actually shared it, but I have to, lay down tobacco and stuff like that. It's just part of the ceremony. But is there a way, like I'm actually planning on teaching kids not the values, but teaching them in a hidden story, like a story, but which has basically hidden spiritual teachings.
Well, this is
about. Yeah.
From my standpoint, it's less about hidden and more just about truthful. So if you look at the Adventures of Onion Head in Space as a chapter book for teachings, there's tremendous spiritual truths in there. And I would say not hidden, but just put there for people to be able to take in as they choose. And I would be bold and truthful and set an environment that's inclusive.
Exactly. So thank you so much, Jay, for being there, bringing these important questions to Lane, and so we can cherish the teaching. Thank you for being there at Kardec Radio.
You're very welcome. Thank you.
So, Lane, we also have here with us another caller, Carol Stroh-Snyder. She is a member of the Spiritist Society of Virginia, and she has been working with Spiritist education for kids for a while, and she's here with us. Hi, Carol. Thank you for joining Kardec Radio this morning.
Hi, thank you. Thank you for taking my call. Lane, I've been listening to you this morning, and I was thinking about what is the best way to start this emotional education. If you give a parent who hasn't ever done it, what would be the first thing you would tell them? Start this way. This is what you should do if a parent has never thought about how to educate their kids' emotions or how to address them. What would be your advice?
Yeah, Carol, I love that question. It's good to talk with you this morning as well. My advice is they begin with themselves, and to begin working as I do every day. Still, I learn every day. It's amazing how much learning it takes. But I started by drawing the cards and then referring to the emotions dictionary, so that I could develop a language, so that I could develop awareness. I came from high technology in business and management consulting. I was business speak. For some reason, I didn't have in my consciousness that if I was going to help bring Onion Head to the world and serve, that I would have to learn emotions myself. I don't know how I missed that one, but I'm still on an emotional education journey myself. And it begins for these parents, for themselves, to be able to learn the emotions. Now, we have a tool that's very good for a household. It's the A to Z magnet set. It's that 52 basic emotions that a child experiences, which, of course, we all experience. And the magnets go on a refrigerator. And we tell parents, put those magnets on the refrigerator and don't say a word in the house. And with the magnet there, I feel and I want to feel magnets that can move around and identify which of those that anyone's feeling. And there's 4 different colors, so 4 people in the household could have their own magnets. And just by identifying each morning how I feel versus how I want to feel, a language in the household develops. So both the parents and the children together are learning at the same time. And this is very powerful, I think, because a lot of times the pressure, parents don't remember, they don't have these skills, and neither do the children. And learning them together is very, very powerful. And so I tell parents, be honest with your children. Tell them, I don't know these emotions too. Let's learn them together. And so that magnet set is powerful, and the tools for the parents to work on themselves is powerful too.
Very interesting. Thank you, Carol, for being here with us and asking this very important question too.
Thank you.
Thank you, Carol.
All right, so Lane, we have here Naur, who is with us, and very soon is going to be with Gaby to talk about the Spiritist education for children. And he has a comment to share with you and talk to you as well. Naur.
Hi, Lane. How are you doing?
I'm doing wonderful.
Great. When I played the application to turn the feeling for the day, the violent and the peaceful feelings.
Yeah.
I just wanted to mention that I have a friend, a coworker, and we came up with a game. So every morning we try to kill each other, virtually. And as I was reading the description of the violent feeling, that's exactly one of the points that we say this word like kill, murder, without even thinking about it. So I'm aiming on Monday to come with a peace flag, and we changed the game. And now we have to give a peaceful message to each other every time we greet each other. So it's much more fun, I suppose.
No, that is so wonderful to hear. Just that alone changes the whole world. We're in such a violent time right now, and we think that we can, it's just a game, or we become desensitized to all the shooter games that are out there, or the violence that happens all the time. We become numb to it, but by not shifting it into peaceful, we essentially can, continue it or progress, the violence. And so Thank you for sharing it, because I believe that it's going to have a huge transformation effect, and you're probably going to develop something very new for your workshops out of that.
Oh, yeah, definitely.
So it's very interesting because as now we're sharing this, I just recall what you mentioned about it. In the name it, claim it, tame it process, it's so important to be open and this egoless mode, because if we are stuck in our ego, now we just gave us a good example of what it is to work on our egoless mode. Otherwise, he would first not have shared or even recognized it to step into the taming and the transformation of the emotions, right?
Yes, absolutely. And, we can spot, Vanessa, when our ego is at play, because the most common thing when people begin using the cards, especially when they draw a heavy emotion, I'm going to put that back, or I don't want to look at that one. Well, guess what, folks? That's where your ego is playing. If you welcome the heavy emotion to learn it, then you're in charge of your ego. You give your ego its small role that it can have as a human being. But too often, all of us, I can speak from personal experience. Our egos get way too big and too much in control.
Exactly. So, Lane, we know that you're going to be in our area at the beginning of December in Baltimore, Virginia's Spiritist Centers. And for those who are going to be in the area, just keep watching our websites, the Spiritist Society of Baltimore website, and also the ssbaltimore.org and the ssvirginia.org. So you can come and enjoy a workshop on emotional education. Before we let you go, just for the time being, hoping that you're going to come back to Kardec Radio next year with us, what would you say to our listeners as your final comments, Lane?
Well, the one thing that hasn't come out specifically is love. And honestly, when we boil everything down that we're talking about here, it really is putting real pragmatic steps in place that allow us to truly understand what it is to love each other and to be in love with ourselves, too. And so I wish for everybody the gift of whatever tools work for you, whatever ability to listen to Kardec Radio, to explore the Spiritist side, to whatever your tools are. I want to share that for my path, it's been one of really, truly learning the depths of love, which come from the heart and the spirit and come from being truthful every single day. And so that message of love, I want to share that love message with everybody listening here.
We are so honored and very deeply grateful that you are here with us, and we hope this collaboration just grows with time. And we are we wish you the very best in this mission at Onion Head and the project on emotional education. Thank you so much for being with us today.
Thank you, Vanessa, for all your support, and I look forward to being with you in Baltimore and Virginia, too.
I know. Well, we'll talk to you later so we can set up the arrangements. Thank you so much, and God bless you.
God bless you. Bye-bye.
Bye. So, dear listener, it's emotional education. It's so important. As Lane Michelle was sharing with us, we have to begin it with ourselves as adults. No matter how we were raised, whether we were constantly repressed at our emotional level or truly liberated, it doesn't matter. What's important for us is that we can change it. As Chico Xavier says, we cannot change the past, but we can create a new beginning to see the seeds that we're planting today grow and we harvest it in the future. It's about the teachings of Maria Montessori, the great educator that taught us that to educate our children, we need to focus on our inner education. So in that regard, it's not all that hard, because if we're educating ourselves, our children are going to learn first and foremost by example. So if our children are troubled, it's a good thing to look at ourselves in the mirror first and see, what am I doing that I'm probably opening these doors for my kids' behaviors to be that way? probably answering this question first, we're going to know what to do next, because we cannot ask them to be well behaved, to be quiet, to be appropriate if we are not fulfilling these orders in our minds. By the way, in a week, we're going to be participating in the First Spiritist Symposium in Texas, Dallas, Texas, October 22nd, the whole day. Go to the website of the United States Spiritist Council, www.spiritist.us, and get your information on how you can be present at the Dallas, Texas First Spiritist Symposium. Daniel Assisi, Julio Carvalho, Mauricio Cisneros, and ourselves will be there giving talks from mediumship with Jesus to different topics that you probably have never heard before. So if you know somebody in the area of Dallas, Texas, send them the message and invite them for this free admission event. Also, as we talk to Jay from Alberta, Canada, we'll be in Canada participating in the Spiritist Week, the symposium in Canada, talking about emotions and how they play a role in our mediumship. So much so that we have Chico Xavier as our main model for emotional education. No wonder his mentor Emmanuel said that the conditions for a good performance mediumistically, and not only that, but to be a good spiritist, we need to discipline ourselves, then discipline ourselves, and discipline ourselves. So right now, we're opening a new topic that is so vitally important as well. To talk about education of emotions, it leads us into the depth of the matter, which is spirit, our essence, spiritual nature, and spiritist education for kids and youth. And here we have Naur and Gabi with us. But before we open the line to learn from them, we're going to let you listen to a case of the book Heaven and Hell. It's entitled The Regrets of a Bon Vivant. It's a case in which we need to acquire new understanding so we understand the vitality of the Spiritist education and how important it is for us not to go by as this guy that regretted the life in cherishing pleasures day and night. Let us listen to the regrets of a bon vivant.
Regrets of a bon vivant. Right now I'm less unhappy because I no longer feel the heavy chains that held me to my body. I'm finally free, but I haven't concluded my expiation. I need to make up for the lost time if I don't want to prolong my suffering. I hope that God will take into consideration the sincerity of my repentance and will grant me forgiveness. Keep praying for me still, I beg you. My brothers, I only lived for myself and now I'm expiating and suffering. May God grant you the grace to avoid the thorns that tear at me. Follow the broad path of the Lord and pray for me, for I abused the blessings that God loans His creatures. Those who sacrifice their God-given intelligence and good sentiments to their brute instincts are like the animals they often mistreat. Men must soberly use the things entrusted to them and should accustom themselves to living without losing sight of the eternity awaiting them. They must detach themselves from material pleasures. Their food should have no other purpose but to give them strength. Luxury should be kept to the requirements of their social position their taste is in. Their most natural propensities should be subject to sane reasoning, otherwise they become more materialized instead of more purified. Human passions are narrow ties that embed themselves to the flesh, so do not allow them to imprison you. Live, but do not become bon vivant. You don't know the price you will pay when you return to the true homeland. Earthly passions rob you of everything before they cease, and you arrive naked, completely naked before the Lord. Cover yourselves with good deeds. They will help you narrow the gap that separates you from eternity. Like a bride robe, they will hide your human turpitude. Wrap yourself in charity and love, divine garments that no one can take away.
Comments by the Medium's Guide. This spirit is on the right path because in addition to repentance, he adds advice to be wary of the dangers of the path that he himself had taken. Recognizing his errors is always meritorious and an effective step toward the good. That is why his situation, albeit not happy, is no longer of a suffering spirit. Having repented, the reparation of another lifetime of trials is open to him. Well now, do you know the situation of people who live sensual lives and who did not give their spirit any other activity than the incessant invention of new pleasures? The influence of matter follows them beyond the grave. Death does not put an end to their material appetites, which their sight, as limited as it was while on the earth, seeks in vain the means to satisfy. Having never sought spiritual nourishment, their soul wanders in the void, without aim, without hope, and prey to the anguish of those who have nothing before them except a desert without end. Since they did not pursue spiritual endeavors while on the earth, they naturally cannot pursue any such work as spirits after death. No longer able to satisfy their body, they have nothing to satisfy their spirit either. Thus, they experience mortal boredom, and they cannot foresee the end of it. They would prefer nothingness instead, but there is no such thing as nothingness. One can kill the body, but not the spirit. They must therefore continue to live this mental anguish until finally, overcome by the awareness of it all, they decide to turn their eyes towards God. Excerpt from the book Heaven and Hell, Chapter 4, Suffering Spirits, by Allan Kardec.
Yeah, dear listener, you know, we keep teaching our children to enjoy life, to do whatever pleases them, and to be served. And here we're listening from the spirits themselves, that if we keep teaching this to our children, we're pushing them to the sufferings, not only in this life, but in the afterlife. So, to talk more about how we can prepare ourselves, we have here with us Naur Fonseca and Gabi Ferreira. It's actually Gabi. Whatever you like. She's saying it's okay. So we are so honored. They are here in the studios of Kardec Radio in Chantilly, Virginia. Thank you so much for being here with us, for waking up so early, taking an early flight from Boston and being here with us. Thank you so much for being here.
Thank you very much for inviting us, Vanessa. We're very happy to be here.
All right. So now you have been working on spiritist education for children and youth for a while.
That's right.
And we know you enjoy it very much.
Especially the a little older ones, 12, 13, 14, have a lot of fun there.
And in that regard, why, Naur and Gabi, is it so important to offer spiritist education for our kids and youth? Why?
So, if you boil down the Spiritism philosophy, you get to the main objective of Spiritism is to know ourselves. So, as our invited speaker Lane was saying earlier, learning our feelings is part and a big part of it. And we should say that right now it's the most important part of it because it's the most neglected one. But knowing also that child is actually a spirit, an immortal spirit with a past of many lives before that he lived or she lived, and a future as bright as our model and guide Jesus to achieve in front of him. So that gives a purpose for life. That gives an understanding of why life has some challenges, even for the very youngest ones. So we believe that given these tools of self-knowledge and also awareness, spiritual awareness, is very valuable for these kids to avoid a future life as the bon vivant example that we saw from Heaven and Hell.
That's so interesting. In your experience, Gabi, in your professional experience,
when you are, can you tell us a little bit about your professional experience so people understand where we're coming from?
Yeah, sure. So I work in a program called Early Intervention. We provide home visits for families with children who are at risk of development, which would be having any syndrome or having parents that are not getting along very well, they're very poor, or having families with children in the autism spectrum. So all of those things that impact development, typical development. So what we do is we provide home visits, sometimes weekly, depends on the family and the providers, just to help with not only with therapy for the delays, but also with providing parents with some strategies to teach limits, some boundaries, respect. Sometimes it's something difficult, especially when they are around 1, something 2. They tend to try to just trespass all the limits that the parents are putting. Mm-hmm. So it can be a difficult age for some parents, and sometimes they see them as babies, so which makes it harder because they don't prune that time, because their faces are very innocent faces. So we help with, and we also help with getting resources for families when they need, when they're having psychological issues.
So then, based on your experience as well, when would you say that it's important to offer spiritist education for our children?
Lane said it so nicely, because we've seen this in the Spirits book as well. Way before we think of having a child.
Bottom line.
Yes. But if you haven't thought about that before and you have a child, it's never too late. So as soon as you realize that it's a good time to start, you just start.
But some people say that, I'm going to wait for my children to grow up, and when they are older, then they're going to choose what they want to do.
Yeah. So this can be very problematic, because we know that the brain does not develop the frontal cortex until they are older, about like 18, even 18, it's not completely, it's not completely ready. So, which means that they are not able to discern, make the right decision. So it's best for us to sow, as the message said before, in the beginning, it's best for us to sow while we can, and then later on, if they decide that they don't want to do this or they don't want to do that, then we already planted something. We already sowed the seed, so it's there.
It's there. So when you're talking about it, you mentioned the word prune, and let us share this to our audience, that in neuroscience, there is this finding already that when we're born of lots of connections already there. And what happens is that as we grow, and Gaby was telling us, if we offer certain experience, those connections get stronger. And the ones that are not used, they're going to be pruned. So if you don't offer it, it's not going to be there. And scientifically speaking, I myself have been at the University of Maryland, and for 10 years we've studied the effects of neonatal experiences in adult life. And it's quite amazing how small experiences can wire our brains in such a way, exposing us and making us more susceptible to the experiences in life, the environmental stimuli as well. So in that regard, would you guys say that the Spiritist Center is the first place where children should get acquainted with Spiritism, or should also parents teach them at home? Where should they get exposure to the teachings?
Well, we are quoting André Luiz when he says that the first school of the child is their home. and the first teachers are the parents. And the first day of class is the first day they are born. So from there you get the answer. And some Spiritist centers will offer Spiritism class for children when they are 4 years old or older. And some will have not specifically a class, but will stay with the kids when even younger. And the goal there is just to bring the spirit to this environment so he can adapt itself, so he can get the vibrational energies from the center that we all receive when we visit a Spiritist center.
But in that regard, just so our listener get a picture, because we don't have any tool out there to teach parents how to bridge Spiritist teachings in their homes, right? Mm-hmm. So there are some books, mainly in Portuguese, some already in English, like My Teddy Bear by Elsa Rossi, and other books put together by the International Spiritist Council's translations from Chico Xavier's books. But still, from the books to sitting down with them and bridging it up, how would you suggest that they do this? For example, many of them say, I don't know how to do the gospel at home or the God at home because they don't stay quiet, or some of them don't like it as well because they are a little older and it seems boring to them. How can parents use those moments or other moments, if you suggest, to bridge Spiritist teachings to their kids?
It's very important that the parents, first of all, it's very important that the parents just go to a Spiritist center on a daily basis. And it's very important that they attend classes in a Spiritist center as well. After that, or concurrent with that, their kids are in their classes, the Spiritism for Kids. So then there they have the opportunity of talking to the teachers of those kids, and even to their teachers in the Spiritist center, of ideas that they can do at home. But one of the things that are very important to know also is that when we become parents, it's important for us to learn a little bit about child development, to be aware of child development. Because in this sense, parents are more equipped to help their children when they're doing the gospel at home. So, for instance, if they are going to sit down, they pick up a time, a day, and they sit down with their kids, and let's say the child is 4 years old, that child is not going to sit down and listen while the father or the mother reads the spirit book. So one of the things that we can do is to decide a topic, and we can do activities with the child. The parent can do activities with the child for 15 minutes about that topic, and that means doing some arts and crafts, just making maybe a puppet or something about Jesus' life, about there are some nice books with good illustrations about being good, being nice. So there are material out there to help parents do the gospel at home.
At home. So we have the website of the Spiritist, the United States Spiritist Council, spiritist.us, and they have the connection for Spiritist activities for children.
Yeah, they have a website with some resources, some stories, and even I think a workbook with complete lessons that anyone can teach because they are step by step. Usually those lessons are intended for groups of kids, so probably you need some adaptation. Now, we in our Spirit Center in Somerville, Massachusetts, we do meetings with parents, and this is the most recurring question: how do we do the gospel at home or the God at home with our kids? And if you read the Spirit's book, which was written in 1857, the language is not going to be appropriate for a child that is 10, 5, very early age. So what we can do is, and some parents have done it, first, choose a time that is comfortable for the kid. You cannot do the gospel too late because they'll be sleepy, or too early because for the same reason. So pick a time that is comfortable for everybody, including the kid. And you can tell a story, a parable of Jesus, and reenact it. Kids love this pretend play. So that's one tool that we can use. If you want to talk about feelings, this onion head cards is an excellent activity that we can do in the gospel at home. So really what Gabi was saying, we need to learn a little bit about psychology, pedagogy, and have some techniques, and that's not hard. There are many resources on the internet of how to do classes for kids. So we encourage that parents, inform themselves. And most importantly, kids learn by example, by observing, and they are our closest, watchers, right? So everything we do, they're watching. So by our own example, but everyday situations, someone calls you at home and you can't pick up. Do you tell your child to lie for you? Tell them they're not here, right? So you're teaching what with that example? So by being truthful, by being loving and caring, by giving the examples, you are teaching spiritism. So spiritism is nothing marvelous like mystic. It's the definition of a spiritist is just someone who is trying to overcome their bad instincts. So if you're doing that, you're a spiritist already.
So when you're saying this, you talked about the workbook. If people go to the United States Spiritist Council website, spiritist.us, you just put a /YSE, and then you get to the website of Youth Spiritist Education, and they have a teacher's guide, which can be also for parents. And the workbook number 1, which is entitled Loving God, and has 12 different lessons, including songs that Bernadette Leal has put together, and she's the coordinator, the main coordinator of this effort, which, by the way, is one of the things that people are doing. I remember Kirsten DeMello and Daniel Santos downloading this book very recently, this workbook, to teach Sarah. And you heard Sarah reading the 10 Commandments by Josiah Korngold. So cute. She's 9-year-old child, and they proposed to, as the parents of Sarah, to teach her weekly the lessons at home. And she comes to the Spiritist Center as well. But as Naor is saying, it's vital to begin at home. It's very important.
So for teenagers or for, avid readers, kids who love to read, we have many romances, many books, many novels that we have seen parents reading together with their children. So both of them are learning about history and about the moral teachings of Jesus by reading a novel, a book, something that passes. It's a pleasure experience as well.
Exactly. Like if you go to edicofamerica.com, you're going to get like messages from a team through Chico Xavier's mediumship, and that's one of the examples of what you said.
Yeah, even books like Nosso Lar and Life Goes On, and for the more advanced ones, Paul and Stephen. Teenagers love that book, because the story is so moving, so dramatic, some points of it, and very illuminating.
So when we talk about sharing Spiritist teachings to kids, some parents are a little bit afraid that we're going to teach them to communicate with spirits and put them into these practices that are obscure to them. So what would you say, in a summary, would be the main Spiritist teachings that we shall share with our children since they are in our belly to older age? What would you say the main Spiritist teachings that we shall teach them?
Well, I was thinking about the principle, the Spiritist principles, but because they are important in terms of children early on are able to understand why they're here and, what they are going to do with their lives and also what is going to happen afterwards. But I think, as Naor mentioned in the beginning, it's really about knowing ourselves. So if the child can grow up recognizing their own feelings, being able to deal with the feelings that are really more difficult to them, I think this is a wonder. Spiritism helps us to overcome our own issues, our own problems. And I think if we can start early on, it's way better by the time we become an adult, and especially because our spirits are going to be, it's completely, reincarnation completely fulfills around like 12, right? Because the spirit is really, really reincarnated at that time. So then it's when our conflicts really come, very strongly. So it's very important. I would say that we focus on the principles. It's the philosophy and the religion, but also our inner improvement.
Exactly.
Yeah. And we cannot forget to say that love is the message that we're trying to pass, and there's so many different ways to love. And in a story of a little ant that helps out the other small animal, the other bugs that didn't have anything to wear for the party that was going on in the forest, so she helped each one to have something. And in the end, she was the most beautiful ant in the party because she was radiant, she was smiling, everybody was happy with her. So in that little story, you get the child to learn about charity, which is the path of true happiness in this life.
That's cute. Yeah, we need to talk about this as well. And it just reminded me, for example, of the movie Sixth Sense, of the children, for example, who are being born with, more sensible mediumship, and parents who don't know what to do with it, or even those who recall previous lives so spontaneously, and parents don't know what to do, and even they can punish their children, like what happened to Chico Xavier, Divaldo Franco. Parents really, avoiding the realization that it's a reality. We're spirits, and we need to know first, as you said, so we can educate them and teaching them. I remember when I was little, my grandmother and I, and we do it to date, even when I call her, we talk about when we sleep, the fact that we know the body's at rest, and we are emancipated. We can go places, as says in the Spirit's book. We can visit each other. And her, by leaving Brazil, we often talk on the phone. She says, I see you later this night when we go to bed. And I remember when she used to, being farther away, she would say, don't worry, not that far. When you go to sleep, we can meet and keep talking and playing, etc. I mean, it's so natural that you grow up and these things become just second nature, the concepts, the feelings, right? Is that what we want to pass it on to children? That feeling of being natural.
Definitely. We are spirits, and spirits is a force of nature. So just recognizing that is a way of knowing yourself. There are many mediums that start in an early age to live with the spirits because they could see or hear them in a daily basis, actually. And they described the experience as being so natural. They didn't have any fears. They didn't have any uncomfort in doing that. So in a way, it's like that. I think Carol Bauman was here, a couple of weeks ago, and she used to say that if a child has memories like that, instead of repressing, right, we could talk about it and maybe learn. Maybe there's some feelings that need to be expressed so the child can overcome any bad experience or traumatic experience from the past. So and for some situations, we do recommend the parents to do the gospel at home or study the spiritism at home with their child and pray every night before going to bed, so that we can attract the company of elevated spirits in our home and create that environment of peacefulness and harmony in our homes as well.
It's funny you're talking about the guardian angels. And I remember, because nowadays I hear many parents saying to their kids, don't worry, Mom and Dad are here. If you need anything, remember, Mom and Dad are here. And I don't recall listening these very sentences from my parents. They would instead say, if you're at school or anywhere and you're in trouble, you pray and you remember that you have a guardian angel protecting you. So it's so different, the approach, because sooner or later parents won't be around. And then what do? You feel abandoned? But if you become a bridge to the ones that really know how to guide your children, right? So how would you say, for example, for parents that are experiencing problems, behavioral problems with their children, how could Spiritism help parents and their children overcome possible spiritual disturbances we call obsessions? And would Spiritist education be way and means to empower our teenagers, for example, our children and parents to overcome it?
Definitely. Spiritism it's a wonderful. It's wonderful because it encompasses everything around our lives. It's really important for us to have in mind that we all have guardian angels or mentors or spiritist friends, and they care for us. So it's important for us to teach that to our kids. And when we find ourselves in times of really stressful, challenging situations, it's important for us to use prayer on a daily basis, maybe more than one during the day, but also for us to know that if we're able to do the intelligent sleep with our teenagers, with our children, with our babies, it can be so powerful. And it doesn't require us a lot of time or knowledge or wisdom, but if we are able to, wait our children, we do our prayers with them before they go to bed or when they're in bed before sleeping. If we can read a book either before or after we do our prayer, a good book with some moral according to their age, obviously. And if we allow them just to fall asleep and we're able to sit down next to them, and if they are older, we're not going to say anything because they might wake up, but we can use our, our thoughts and just pray. Pray to their guardian angels, pray to God, to Jesus, to be able to help that spirit. And we can also talk to them about, how much we love them, how much we care for them, and that's why we are there. And sometimes, we have some difficulties, but we just want the best for them. It can be a great help for the family, for the whole family, and we need to do it with faith. It's important that we believe that it's a very, very important tool that we have in our hands.
So when you're talking about this, there is another side of the story too. When parents realize since pregnancy sometimes or later that there is something between themselves and the child that does not connect. To tell you the truth, I remember this true account of a father turning to us and saying about his 3-year-old boy, in these precise words, I don't like this guy. We weren't friends in a previous life. And if we weren't Spiritists, we would be shocked because we assume, I remember asking this woman who was pregnant, like, do you like being a mom? And she's like, of course. And I said, because she's a Spiritist, I said, where is the of course there? Because based on the Spirit's teachings, we can't assume that you really like being a mother of this or that child. For example, just to give us an example how Spiritism is so fully aware of this reality that sometimes enemies can be reborn in our families. In chapter 14, item 9, St. Augustine describes a beautiful journey of souls that didn't get along. They spent some time in the spirit realm as he saw rebelling against the idea of forgiveness, self-denial, etc. And then he says, finally, after years of meditation and prayer, the spirit profits from the use of a body that is to be born in the family of the one it used to hate, and it asks the spirits designated to transmit the divine orders to be allowed to fulfill on the earth the destiny of that body that is about to be formed. So how will, he asks, how will it behave as a member of this family? And the answer, he says, that will depend on the degree of persistence of its resolution to be better. The constant contact with individuals it used to hate is a terrible trial to which it succumbs sometimes if its will is not sufficiently strong. Quite interesting. So how would we say Spiritism can help parents who know that or feel quite clearly that themselves and their children, they were not very good friends in previous lives?
That's an excellent question. And that's one of the types of questions that allow us to show how comforting is a Spiritism and how illuminating it can be. So this father, maybe he had other children, and he loved the other children, but this guy, right? And he might feel awful, like a monster, if he were not a Spiritist. Because he would say, how come I can love one so much and despise the other? I'm a monster. And many people may feel guilt because of that. By understanding, and that's also from St. Augustine in that same question, that one of you, either the father or the guy, made a mistake in the past, that changed the game. So if we did make a mistake and now we're together, it's to mend it. Because the goal of God for everyone is to be happy, is to learn to love each other. So now we can, again, work with the onion head cards and start playing the game of heavy feelings, light feelings. It's a project for the both of you. So maybe the father will never love that guy as much as he loved the other children, but at least in that reincarnation, they will solve or diminish that feeling of hate that they had before.
I just would like to comment that when we were listening to Lane earlier, he said something that we learn in Spiritism, that we need to name our feelings and we need to be humble enough to acknowledge them, to recognize those feelings, even the heavy ones, especially the heavy ones. And Dr. Alidio Cerqueira Filho, I guess, so he mentioned that he had a case with a mother saying that she was pregnant and she couldn't bear. She didn't actually. She had the baby, and sometimes she felt throwing the baby out of the window. And she said, I'm feeling very guilty because this is not normal. But she was a Spiritist. So then she started her therapy with him, and they talked. They went through many different things. After some months, they found out why she had that type of feeling, and she was willing to work to transform that feeling. So it's important for us to be aware that we often hear parents say, oh, no, I love you both the same. I love all my kids exactly the same way, which is a lie. It's not true, because otherwise we forget the law of affinity. We have different, sympathy, affinities with different spirits. So it's important for us to acknowledge our feelings, recognize what we are feeling, so we can deal with them and transform it, because that's the purpose. That's our goal.
No, don't be afraid of recognizing it. So you would say that by facing it, praying together, bringing the child also to the center, also the parents recognizing, receiving the passes, studying together, we would also, studying Spiritism, we would be taming these emotions that come, right?
Yeah. Yes. Definitely.
And empower our will, because as he's saying, St. Augustine, if if we don't have strong will, we're going to fail And that's the case of many people. We see that they simply recognize that they don't get along. It's like, okay, you go your way, I go my way, and that's it. And as he's saying, we need to strengthen our will.
Yeah, so, if you ask, Allan Kardec asked the spirits, what's the goal of reincarnation, right? And the answer was, for some, it's a mission, and parenthood is a mission, a very important one. So if you find yourself in this mission, it's because God has trust that you can carry that load. And this spirit that came from memorial time in the past, that has some links from previous lives, came for you at this time because God knows that you can cope, and you together can make this project a happiness project for both. I have something that I like to say to those teenagers when they get very rebellious. So sometimes they will say, well, I haven't asked to be born in this family. And then they will do awful stuff and say names and etc. And sometimes we say to them, you're right. You actually didn't ask. You begged. You begged, because the line of spirits to reincarnate in a family like yours that has this type of knowledge that only Spiritism brings so clearly without any allegorism or figures. So you are a very lucky spirit. Seize your opportunity right now, right? Seize your life.
That's so interesting. So we have a lot to learn here from the Spiritist Education for Children. We now are unfortunately get at the very end of this program, but I'm sure Gavina will be back for a lot more Kardec Radio. Just wait and see. 2012 is here for us, for a new opportunity for all of us to know about Spiritism for children and youth. Now, Gabi, before we wrap up the show, would you share your final comments for today, please?
I'm very happy to be here, having the opportunity to speak about this important message. So, if you live near a Spiritist center, you have a family, have kids, and they don't yet have meetings specific for the kids, so we call Spiritism classes for children and youth. If you don't have those specific classes, so ask the workers, volunteer yourself, take part in this. We need to start this work because the child is the seed for the future. The youngsters, the teenagers, they are already ready to begin their work. And the adults, the parents and the other practitioners of Spiritism in those centers, they are the harvest. They are actually developing the work of Christ in our physical realm. So it's an excellent opportunity for you to get more involved in education. And some spirits, they have this gift or this skill. They just do so well with kids that this is talent that we need to use to prepare the next generation of humanity that is coming in this new planet of regeneration that Earth is going to become.
And speaking of the new regeneration, the new planet that we are transforming into, it's just important for us to have in our hands not a very passive way of living, but more active way. So if we want to be part of a regenerated world, let's start with us. Let's regenerate ourselves and help our kids to be better, so then the future will be brighter, and this will increase our faith.
Thank you so much, Noor and Gavi, for being here with us and bringing this joy.
Thank you.
All right. So, dear listener, do you feel the vibrations of joy? Oh, yes. It's so beautiful. When we talk about the formation of a new generation, Allan Kardec, he said in the book Genesis, last chapter, a new generation was going to come. One that is here to help us into this new planet that we're being transforming into. That's why we have come to the realization that it's so important to focus on this new generation, trust, first and foremost, that your child is a child of God. No matter the problem and the affliction, remember, your child is first and foremost a child of God. So if you're being afflicted, turn to God and say, Lord, please help me. Figure out a solution. I trust that your child is entrusted to me temporarily. May I be inspired and to help everyone into these new steps. Let me share with you a prayer that you, the parent, the educators, can do to boost new wisdom into this mission, as Nawar and Gabi were sharing with us. If you go to chapter 28 of the Gospel According to Spiritism, Allan Kardec shares with us one of the prayers is about a prayer to our guardian angels and protecting spirits. There are 3 different types, and we are now going to invite you so we can pray for our kids, for the teenagers in our lives, asking that the good spirits that guide their lives, finding us instruments to guide them as well. So let us pray together as Kardec exemplifies in the Gospel According to Spiritism. Dear God, allow the good spirits who assist our children to come to our aid when they are in trouble, and to uphold them if they waver. Oh Lord, enable the spirits that guide us to inspire us and our children with faith, hope, and charity. May they be for us a support, a hope, and a proof of your mercy. Finally, enable us and our children to find in the guardian angels the strength that we may lack in our life's trials, and in order to resist bad suggestions, the faith that saves and the love that consoles. Beloved spirits, guardian angels, you whom God in His infinite mercy allows to watch over humankind, be the protectors of our child and ourselves in the trials of our earthly lives. Give us strength, courage, and resignation. Inspire us with everything good and restrain our tendencies toward evil. May your gentle influence enter our souls. Enable us to sense nearby a devoted friend who sees our suffering and shares our joys. Dear listener, there is so much out there. It's a world that is being renewed. So Kardec Radio is here to empower you in your own divine nature. And more than that, share this program with your friends. And tonight, if you're listening to this live, tune in to tvcei.com or at ssbaltimore.org/webcast and watch live the workshop by Nawar and Gabi at the Spiritist Society of Baltimore, 6 p.m. Eastern Time, United States. If you, by any chance, you are listening to this on demand, simple. Go to spiritistnetwork.com and you're going to be able to listen to that watch it on demand. Thank you so much. In a week, we come back to talk about and to talk with North American Spiritists. Join us at Kardec Radio. Email us, kardecradio@gmail.com, and ask your questions. Make your requests. We're here to nourish your soul. May God bless us all.
Thank you for listening to Kardec Radio, broadcasting live every Saturday morning at 11 a.m. Eastern Standard Time. Email us and share your comments at www.kardecradio.com. Until next time, we wish you many blessings.